fun of Descartes because it sounds like he thinks there's like this little driver in our head that's driving us around. And then the question is, well, how does this little driver know what's going on? And so you get an infinite regression of drivers, because it just doesn't work. You can't imagine a car that's a stick shift car being driven by someone who's a paraplegic, right? How are they going to, shift the gears, put on the brake, put on the gas, shift the stick, right? Turn the wheel. They don't have arms or legs, so there's no way they can interact with, well, they might have them, but they can't use them. Either way, they can't do any of the things that you think of as driving a car. And so it's ridiculous. That doesn't work. And by the way, if we even get to the point where we put a chip in your head and you're able to move your mouse or something, that's still a physical cause and effect relationship. You're using whatever mechanism that chip is using in order to interact with those computer devices. So you don't escape that dilemma there. So this is basically ridiculous, and Descartes' position seems ridiculous. The ghost in the machine is, that kind of criticism. And by the way, Leibniz will criticize Descartes that way and argue, he was such a genius. How could he have made this kind of a rudimentary mistake? But that's why I don't think he did. I don't think he really was thinking that. I think he was still very concerned that the church could burn him at the stake if they found him saying something that was totally against what the church dogma was. And by saying that we're a complete machine like Hobbes was saying, would have been that kind of thing. Hobbes escaped that, by the way, because Hobbes kept fleeing back and forth. Remember, he was born a child of fear, right? And he would go to Europe whenever things got too hot for him in England. He would come back when things looked better in England, and he was getting in trouble in Europe for what he was saying. And then after things happened in Europe that calmed down, people forgot him, and he was in trouble in England, he would go back. So he kept going back and forth. David Hume did the same sort of back and forth for the kinds of things he would say. Even when Hobbes printed the Leviathan, which argues that the monarch is chosen by the people, that came out when Oliver Cromwell was ruling England as the Lord Chancellor, right? And and Cromwell reading the book and his advisors reading the book looked at it and thought, oh, this guy is basically supporting us, because we've been chosen by the people to be the ruler. Some of his counselors suggest, I think he's really thinking about King Charles, the second, because, he's, associated with him. And of course, when King Charles II was king, it does certainly apply to him as well. So Hobbes kind of squeaked through there, right? So even though he was really definitely saying all sorts of heterodoxical. Thank you. I was getting there. I was just losing the ickle part. But I mean, he was heading in that direction. If people read him and understood him, I think in a more modern way, they would have realized this guy deserves to burn or something. Whatever they were using back then. Remember Giordano Bruno? That would have been a scary thing back in that time for them to suddenly have this great big bonfire on the stage. I would like run because it's a wooden theater, But in any case, Hobbes survived. Descartes didn't want to take that risk. Did I show you the picture of him at Dr. Tulip's thing? I don't remember if I did that or not. But That's terrible. Did I show you this? That's a Rembrandt. Did I show it to you at all? No?
I don't think you ever showed us.
Okay, so Dr. Tulip, this is Dr. Tulip. Yes, he is the guy that came up with the flower, you know, the bulbs. I mean, they obviously existed already, but he's the one that kind of like decided to grow them in such a way that the Netherlands became, like, I mean, you just grow tulips like crazy there, and that's his name. We actually know who the corpse is. Because he bought the corpse from the hangman. I mean, it was scheduled. Joe Snuffy hanged at noon or whatever, and so the guy who hung him, he had been paid to take the body down and bring it to his living room or theater, where he had all these people come for a dinner show. They ate a meal while watching him dissecting the body and explaining all the different gears and things that work. By the way, we also know that this arm was already gone because that same guy had lost the arm for theft a few years before. So Rembrandt just basically decided to make an arm anyway. But all these individuals posed separately in Rembrandt's studio. It's not like Rembrandt went to this and then in a quick dash painted all these different characters. But the neatest thing about all of this is that Descartes was in the audience, also. So that's when this was done. So Descartes was there and was involved in dissecting animals. He dissected cows in his living room. It's also pretty clear he paid people to bring dead bodies, dig them up, bring them in. Don't tell anyone. Because it was illegal, of course, to do that. And by the way, for some reason, after approximately 3 months, Descartes would always move to another place. Yes, interesting kind of habit. Remember, they didn't have Clorox or anything, so I'm thinking dissecting all these dead animals and bodies. Yeah, probably not very. Reminds me, one of the funeral homes in Anchorage is now another business, and I was always thinking, yes, exactly. I'm with you on that. Who wants to have a healthcare business in the same building where they used to keep? And it's also funny to me because the place was called Witzleben, and for some reason my youngest daughter always thought it was pronounced Witzelben, which I thought was Witzelben, Witzleben. That's just a family thing. Okay, so I'm convinced that Descartes was in agreement with Hobbes, that the body was a complete machine, including the brain. But he came up with this idea of the mind interacting with the body in the pineal gland in order to escape the dilemma of having the church think he was not accepting the human soul. But if you read his stuff, that soul does nothing. The body is what does everything. It's really kind of like a machine. In fact, another little incident in Descartes' life was he did have a daughter, Francine, and she died while she was very young. I think like 5 or something, maybe even younger. And in any case, he missed her so badly, he made a doll that looked like her, and it moved. And people thought that that was so freaky that they took it from him and they destroyed it. I'm thinking it was kind of like Chucky, You know, because it had like ears and things. Yes.
Can you look up just homunculus?
I can. Did I spell it right?
Oh my.
Yeah, the YouTube video of the guy who made this movie. I don't know if it's doing that, but it's the guy
That's not Descartes. Descartes didn't. Actually, Descartes didn't draw a homunculus. He drew the pineal gland.
It's
So.
the most sensation in your body gets represented by like the bigger body pieces, and then the other one
Scroll
is
down,
showing you
scroll
like
down.
where your brain is in control of it. So much fun.
Okay, is this an app?
No,
No?
this is.
So I couldn't go on and say, give me a guy who loves spaghetti. And you would get somebody with like a real stringy tongue.
I'm real glad that doesn't exist, but I'm sure it does somewhere.
Someone just got the idea for it. You know, there we go. So Descartes is considered a mind-body dualist. Hobbes, not, right? It's just the mechanical. Spinoza, if you take Hobbes and you take Descartes and you kind of merge their, because you can see as you're reading Spinoza, he's got whole globs of paragraphs right out of the Leviathan, right? He's a mind-body dualist, the same as Descartes officially was. But, and here's the absolutely hilarious part, they don't interact. So he escapes the dilemma that Descartes has, right? Because Descartes thinks that the mind and the body have nothing in common with one another. The mind is not a substance, right? And yet it interacts with the substance. And so that's why you get this dilemma, right? Spinoza says they don't interact. They're two different modes, right? So the one mode is physical, and everything that happens is associated then with cause and effect in the physical mode. And then the other mode is our mental one. And so all of our experience is actually mental. And I might think to myself, raise your arm, raise my arm. Wow, look at that. Isn't that amazing? You know, for Descartes, my mind told my body to raise my arm. For Spinoza, there's no such connection. So when this happens and I'm thinking I want to raise my arm, it's just exactly. And why would that be acceptable? Because God made the whole thing, right? So both modes are cooperating completely. So it looks like my mind made my, actually, if you think about it, no, wait a minute. The raising of an arm is a mental event inside my mind. I can't really see what's going on in the thing in itself, the body, although we don't get that until we get to John Locke.
Spinoza does not believe that God gave us free will then.
Not at all.
Well, that's not fun.
No free will.
For that one.
No creation. By the way, he doesn't just get in trouble with maybe contemporary individuals trying to figure out, holy Spinoza, what are you doing? We also get in trouble with his own synagogue, as you saw in that short video if you were here. You know, the synagogue basically decided when he was just in his 20s to kick him out of the synagogue because of his heterodox beliefs, right? He's arguing and criticizing the Torah, for example. You know, that Moses could not have written the Torah because there's a lot of things in the Torah that, are written about Moses. It wouldn't have made sense for Moses to have written. He was a very, what was it? He was a very honest man? No. Humble man. He was a very humble man. Moses, very humble man. Considering Moses is supposed to have written that, that would have been a scene, I love saying, I'm the humblest person in the room. I'm very proud of it. It's like, one of those. That might come from Woody Allen, but I'm not sure if you're allowed to discuss Woody Allen either. It's kind of like Bill Cosby. They both, were famous, hilarious, and in trouble, for various relationships. And for good reason, by the way. Thou shalt not drug thy date,